what usually causes the company to want to do a BPR, or what's something that we see on their side that we bring it up and say, maybe we should visit this?
Okay, so when we are talking to clients, one of the biggest things that we find is that there are a lot of people who get Epicor, and because Epicor is so big and ever changing, they got their original implementation done, they have their original, pieces, and they had their original setup and configuration, and then they live in it for a while. And there's one of a couple things that could happen. One, you could just need more, right? Like now that you've lived in it, you have some understanding of what is being done in Epicor, what can be done in Epicor, and now you have some needs of like what comes next. So sometimes that's the case. And then there are other times where your business processes just change. Let's say you're growing like crazy, or you're scaling back a little bit, or you have people that change internally, that the people who were a really big part of the implementation process are no longer there, or you pick up a new line of business, or you acquire somebody. Like there are a million different reasons that that people's business processes change. And we're seeing that happen so often, especially in manufacturing, like things change so quickly. So when your business processes change, we want to make sure that your Epicor matches the way you do your business. And if you're not doing something like this, then your Epicor is working towards old processes and your business is doing something different. So we want to match those two things. So that's the other reason. And the third reason is just people come to us and they're like, we've been using Epicor for so long. There are some things that we have workarounds for in the background, and we don't even know if this is something that could be in Epicor. Like we don't even know what we don't know. We think that we have these Excel spreadsheets sitting outside of this, and we think that actually that probably could be part of Epicor, but we don't even know. Like we're not even sure what the bells and whistles of Epicor are that we're not using. So like those big ticket items are the places when we're having conversations with clients that we're like, this might be a really good fit for you.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything that you see from when you're talking to clients initially that they say, like, this is the reason that we're here?
I think Colleen really nailed it on the head, but a lot of it is either, yes, they've lost people and, people who are left never went through training initially.
Right.
And just learning it on the fly. And the other thing is, business changes. We're doing something different. We need to grow and do something more, and we don't know how to get there.
Okay. And aside from like a big event or something that they realize is happening where they might visit a BPR, is there like a cadence that you guys recommend in terms of maybe let's revisit it every year? Or like
that's a good question. So we have some clients that do this like every 18 months. It makes sense for them because that's the manufacturing world. It moves quickly. There's a lot of different changes and pieces. There's people that change around. And there's just always things to be done in Epicor. You can always utilize Epicor better. So we do have people that do this every 18 months just because things change that quickly. And then we have people who do this like around their upgrade cadence. If we're going to upgrade, we may as well use all the tools that are available to us. And some people do it for just when those other events happen.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So let's say a client says, yes, I'm ready to do a BPR. What is expected of them to either grab on their side of things or come with in order to make this as smooth as possible? And that might be more towards you.
At TW Tech, we use a document called BPR questionnaire, which we send out to the clients pre-BPR to allow them time to review the different modules of Epicor and ask them questions. What do you do how do you enter orders? What's your business type? What type of customers do you have? Are you manufacturing? Are you distribution? What's your mode? And it just goes through the questions through all the modules and helps them understand what we're looking for before we get in and start asking all those questions. And then we just follow up with them in face to face and go through their business.
Yeah.
See what they need.
Okay. Are those questionnaires usually like tailored towards them, or is it kind of a generic doc that they kind of pick through and say like, oh, this
is kind of a generic doc, and we'll tailor to if they're only looking at certain modules or something, or full-blown implementations, when you open it up, but,
Right.
we'll tailor to, okay, just look at these sections and that's all you need to fill out.
Yeah. Is there any, do they have to get representatives from every department in order to get this to go smoothly?
It's very helpful to have key players from different departments be involved in the process, especially if we're looking at big picture over, quote to cash type of process. We want to touch the key people of different departments who understand what that department does in the process.
Right. Okay. If you had to recommend a mindset for a client to come into with, because I know that some people probably come into it saying they don't understand the reason for this. They come in a little closed-minded. Do you guys try to get them to think you have to be as transparent as possible because this is what's going to allow us to think of new solutions to maybe pitch in the future?
Yeah. So generally, this is just an outside perspective to kind of take a look at how you're using the software, how your business is going from quote to cash or whatever specific areas they want us to look into. And so in the end, we're not pushing you to do anything, although we may strongly recommend something, but really it just gives you an overview of here's where you're at and here's where you want to be. And I always talk to clients about a business and process review being how we can get you from current state to desired state. So if you have a desired state, that would be the mindset I'd come in with. We have somewhere we want to get. We may not even know what that looks like yet, but we want you to come in and help us just optimize and utilize this software better for our business. So as long as that you're looking for growth or at least a perspective on how we can grow, that's a good start. And then just knowing that none of the recommendations that we make in the end, we'll have all kinds of information for you in the end, which we'll talk about a little bit. Those are all recommendations for you. It's something you can take back to your team and make some suggestions and have conversations around and then determine where you want to go next. So really, it's just another person's perspective on how you can better utilize and optimize your Epicor environment for your business.
Yeah.
So there's no crazy anything that comes out of it. And you guys can take that information and do with it what you will. So.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So we talked about who's involved on their side of things, who's all involved on 2W side. Obviously, Epicor consultant and a client success manager, because that's who we have here today. But who else would you say usually gets roped in?
Well, it depends on what areas that they want to focus in. We have different types of consultants, operations consultants, financial consultants, technical consultants, depending on where their need is, what they identify as their key needs up front. Obviously, as we go through the business process, we learn things and we find out, you could use help in these other areas, and we'll bring in other people to help facilitate that.
Okay. Yeah. So it's very dynamic, and as things come about, we just pull more people in.
And then on the 2W side, there's also a project management team that supports getting everybody scheduled and making sure that we're getting to the desired outcomes. So in the end, when we're kind of collecting findings and making suggestions for next steps, it's usually the consultants, the CSM, and the project manager working together, kind of bring that all together into a nice little package for the client.
Okay. Awesome. And then, so say they bring in that questionnaire, all the information that you asked for. And you touched on this a little bit in terms of questions that you bring up to them to prompt them to think, but what are some other examples of questions that you ask maybe after you get that form back?
Well, we'll walk through their business case, step by step to try to bring out any ideas, but really in each section, each department, we'll ask, what are your pain points? We want to find out what bothers you with it. I mean, maybe we can help out with it. Maybe it's just that's how the software is, but let us help you improve that. That's one of the big ones is what are your pain points?
Okay. Mm-hmm. And then we touched on this a little bit in terms of we're solution-based, not product-based. Do you want to go into that a little bit and how we always ask for the why because it gets us to a solution that we know is going to help you?
Yeah. So like Keith said, we're talking about pain points. We're talking about bottlenecks. Where are the places that you're going outside of Epicor to do your business? Because Epicor should be your full line of business software. So we do find all the time people are like, well, we have this Excel spreadsheet for this and there's a lot of manual entry for this or those kinds of things. And so when we hear things like that, that's where we're like, all right, let's dig into that a little bit because we can help you get to a place where you're not double entry or manually doing things that the system can do. Like that's the goal of the system. So we want to make sure that we're understanding, what's getting in the way of you guys being able to do your business well. We want you to be able to use the system so that you can focus on the actual parts of your business that need the humans. And so when we go over like, what are your pain points, we're really thinking about what are the business challenges and how do we support them in either using Epicor better or just streamlining some things so that those business challenges can be solved. So we're not pushing modules. We're not pushing, there's no, on our end, there's nothing that we're like, ooh, if we could sell this, then this would be a good win for us. We really want to help people optimize their business functions through Epicor. So that's the goal of this. And sometimes we come to people and we're like, all right, here's what we found. Here are some simple things you can do to make this work better. And sometimes even during the business and process review, they're able to say, well, if you just like click here instead of here, that will alleviate this and it's a quick fix. So we're kind of looking for some of those, like what are some short-term quick fixes that you guys can do now to like help your business today? And then what are some longer-term things that might need to be like a bigger project or process and might need some hand-holding to get you to a more optimized way of using this software. So, I mean, the business and process review is just our opportunity to help you kind of determine what some of those pain points are, what some of those bottlenecks are, and what we can do in the future to get you to a more fully optimized way of being with Epicor. But there's no sales out of like, we're not trying to make sure that you buy something. It's really just about having another set of eyes. So.
Right. And that transitions perfectly actually into the next question, which is all around something unique that TW does is everyone gets assigned a client success manager. So can you talk about how after this whole BPR process is through, how it helps you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Journey? So client success managers stick with our clients for a long time, right? For a long time in their Epicor journey and their journey with 2W in the partnership. So our goal is to really understand their business well so that when we see things happening either on the Epicor front, the IT front, when we see trends that are happening in the manufacturing world or whatever that may be, then we can kind of stay aligned with them and say, hey, I know that these are some big goals in your business. Here's some things we're seeing that might really be able to support you. So this is just another opportunity for that. It helps our consultants get in there and uncover some things that may be pain points for people. And then we take whatever the findings are of the BPR and we sort of sit down with our clients and say, all right, what are you thinking? Like, which of these is really like ringing a bell for you? Like, we need to go forward with this right away. Which of these things is sort of like, it's nice to have somewhere down the line, but let's just make note of that. And we use technology roadmaps with all of our clients where we're just constantly kind of thinking about what needs to be in order to be proactive around technology and the technology that supports their business. Like, how do we continue to have that conversation about what's coming up for us and how can we plan for it ahead of time instead of being reactive with our technology? So the technology roadmap and the BPR match perfectly because we can grab things right off of the findings of the BPR, throw them on the roadmap, have a conversation about when it makes sense for the business to kind of think about those things, which things need to be sort of long-term or wish list and which things need to be acted on right now. And then in the partnership, we'll figure out how to move forward with any of those things.
Okay, perfect. Now this will be interesting for both of you guys to answer, but what are some common challenges that you come across for you, like during the BPR process and maybe anything you would say after?
During the process, some of the big challenges may be if the people that are involved on the customer side don't have either enough knowledge of the overall process of what we're talking about or are more reluctant to change in their mentality. It makes it challenging to try to pull that information out or to find the right person who may have that key idea that, oh, this is what you mean. This is how we interpret what they're saying. We're trying to learn from them, and sometimes the communication isn't quite right between people. So we just need to make sure we have a full understanding of what they're trying to tell us.
Okay. Would you say that clients usually pick the right representatives for the job?
For the most part, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
They know who knows what's going on. But, timing sometimes plays into the person isn't available or not there.
Right. I was going to ask them, just out of curiosity, do clients ever like bring in someone that's like a month into their role and into the business?
Not usually during the BPR. Maybe they'll sit there just to observe, but they're not really inputting anything until after, because they want that person to be trained or something is usually what they're there for, and is be there to hear what is being said.
Okay.
Yeah. I think another thing that's really important in the BPR is that not only do you have representatives from each area that you want to build functionality in, but also that there's some executive sponsorship. So unless you're on board with, like, we want to move forward, we want to optimize, we want to build functionality in this process, you have to have somebody who's going to move that forward on the client's end. So we're ready to roadmap and we're ready to make plans and all of those things. But if that's not a big picture kind of dream of the companies, then it's hard to get everybody on board. Because, Keith or the consultants are meeting with, a bunch of different departments or areas in that business. And then if there's not somebody to go back to and be like, all right, here's what we found, here's what we uncovered, here are the big pain points, where do you want to go next? Like, that executive level sponsorship is really, really important, to have that like sort of strategic partner to say, here's how we're going to move forward. And these are the biggest pieces that our company needs to get to where they need to be. So, and then sometimes, like Keith said, there are people that, technology is hard. So, and there are people who are really comfortable with change and there are people who are really not comfortable with change. So that change process, if you choose to move forward with something that is different than what you're currently doing, that can get hard. And so having somebody on the business's end to be able to say, here's where we're headed as a company, we need you on the bus, is a really important thing as well.
So if you guys come across someone that's a little reluctant, how does that conversation go? Where you try to get them to see the perspective that we see?
Usually people who may be reluctant to change are very knowledgeable. They understand their process, they understand their role, whatever, they understand their business. So you just have to talk with them and get them comfortable with your knowledge in the area, and maybe you can come to a common ground and help push it over the hump.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that you find in Epicor is that all of the departments are related. It's a line of business software, quote to cash. So if there's a need in one department or area and that change needs to be made for that reason, it may impact a different area as well. And so when, again, like that whole picture view, so it may be, like you said, somebody that's more reluctant, that's just very working in one area of the software and they want to be able to just continue to do what they've been doing. But there may need to be, let's say, an upgrade or a move to kinetic screens in order for somebody else in their Epicor environment to be able to do what they need to do. Like, those are the pieces that we have to sort of connect for people, is that sometimes pulling a trigger here is going to impact somebody here. And we need to make sure that everybody understands the big picture view of how we'll get to where we need to be.
Okay. So are you guys meeting with like everyone who they're choosing to represent at once, or do you guys split off into department?
Good question.
We will meet with the team of people. And usually, we'll ask them to have key representatives, a core team, small, less than a handful of people to go through it. And then we'll bring in other people from the different areas when we talk about that area.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. So ballpark, and I know this is going to be a variety of answers, but on average, how long do you say like a business process review lasts?
So our typical business and process review is 40 hours. That's usually how we sort of quote it out. And that allows time for our consultants to spend the time with the key players and walk through where they're at, and also allows them time to sort of digest what's been happening and think about what they're seeing versus where they want to head, and then kind of create that deliverable of a full report about here's what I'm seeing, here are some recommendations, and then here are some next steps. So 40 hours typically seems to be okay. That's and that's assuming that we're going like from the full quote to cash process.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, like Keith said, we have people who are like, we just want you to focus in this area. We typically still start those at 40 hours just because we feel like that gives us a good sense of we can really dig in and we can really talk about this and then kind of think through it. I don't know if you have any other thoughts about what it actually shakes out as.
No, I mean, that's right. I mean, we can, and how we do it, we can do it in different ways, whether we do it remotely, do remote online sessions, couple, 2-hour sessions, a couple times a week or every week, just to start breaking down the process, or go on site and do all in one day blast type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you need time to talk to the people, find the information, consume it, re-ask questions that help you identify any questions that we may have, and then time to document the findings, the recommendations. I mean, that's really what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Now, is there certain businesses that benefit more from a BPR, whether that be size-wise, industry? I know we work primarily with manufacturers right now, but any trends that you guys see?
I don't think so. I think it's really just about mindset. If your team is ready. I mean, there are things that are more urgent than others. Obviously, when people come to us and they're like, we lost our main Epicor guy and now we just don't even know where to start. Like, obviously those people are ripe for it because they need it. Mm-hmm. But we have a lot of people who come to us and they're like, everything's going pretty well and we want to get even better, and they do really well with these too. So the thing about it is this will always be something that will help people because Epicor is so, you can't outgrow it. And there are always things in Epicor that you can do to optimize what you're trying to do with your business. So, I think it's really important to just like continue to at least think through things and walk through what are our processes. Does our software actually match that? Like that's a huge, we'll have people that will come to us and be like, we've been doing it the same way for, 10 years. And we're not actually sure this makes any sense for us. It's like, yeah, let's take a look at that, and we get that so often. And again, when people get to that place in Epicor, sometimes the more comfortable way to go is to just make a process that kind of circumvents Epicor. So I can't figure out how to get this to work in Epicor. I'm just going to make a spreadsheet on my own to make this work. And we see that happen over and over again, where then suddenly they're using spreadsheets more than they're using Epicor. And they're like, why are we paying all this money for this software that's supposed to do this for us? So, we see people kind of make workarounds along the way. And then sometimes somebody will leave and they don't even realize that what they were doing was a workaround. Right. And like all of these people have been trained in this way. And we're like, oh, if you just do it this way, like this is the way it's intended to function. That's actually how this is supposed to work.
Right.
Or people will be like, can't we do this? And it's like, yeah, there's actually a module just specifically for that.
Yeah.
So, there are a lot of things to uncover and it's not anybody's fault. It's not like our clients don't know how to use Epicor or don't understand their own businesses. It's just, luckily, Epicor is continually putting functionality into their software. There are modules and modules and modules. I couldn't even tell you how many. And, they all sit on top of each other and intertwine with each other. And so, there's just a lot of ways to do a lot of things in Epicor. And so continually fine tuning that is what this is all about.
Yeah. So now this will be a good stat to end on. This is the last question. If we had to guess how many of our Epicor clients go through with the BPR, what would you guys say?
Well, since I've been doing them, I would say 98% of them have taken our recommendations and gone forward with something.
Yeah. I mean, they really are very successful in the end. Like people, usually when Keith is going through his findings, and I get lucky enough to be on a lot of these with Keith, but like when he's going through his findings, people are like, you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what our problem is. And then he can continue with, and here's what we would recommend to get you there. And the cool part about that is that a lot of times Keith has been there. He's been like on the shop floor. He's seen what they're doing, or he's at least talked to every person throughout the process. We make a recommendation, and then let's say we're going forward with a next step for, we want to optimize in this way, and it's a new project. A lot of times Keith gets to work on that project with them. So it's that continuation and sort of comprehensive understanding of where they're headed. That really is a nice piece too. It's not like we have random consultants doing BPRs and then other consultants doing the work. Like, and it doesn't always happen that the person who did the BPR is the person who does the work, but it's pretty consistent that usually the person who's involved helps them with their next steps, which is really nice.
Yeah.
As far as like number of clients that we have versus the ones who have done BPRs, honestly, I have no idea. I have no idea. But as a client success manager who talks to clients all day, every day, this is something I suggest for a lot of people just because of the way that they'll come to us with like, we don't even understand how to do this, or we're trying to get here. We're not sure how that works. This is always a good place to start.